what has been going on with that today? So the SNP today fought off a last-ditch bid to block 15-year-old children from beginning the process of being able to change their gender. 15 years old. We don't let children that age buy paracetamol for a headache, for heaven's sake. One woman who has been very vocal about this and has faced fierce pushback against her is the wonderful Kellie-Jay Keen. She's on the line with us right now. Kelly, thank you so much. I really appreciate everything that you do, because one day I might have a daughter or a niece, and I will be very glad that women like you exist, because you will be doing everything you can to make the world a much safer place for them. But, Kelly, what do you make of this ruling today? Should we start with the fact that just 15 years old, this is before we move on to sex offenders, the kids stuff? Talk to me about that.
Well, I wonder if the two aren't very inextricably linked, sex offenders and kids being able to consent to such devastating decisions. You do have to wonder, when Scottish Parliament come on the side of kids being able to make irreversible decisions and rapists in women's prisons and having unfettered access to women, you really want to ask about the hard drives of those MSPs.
Do you actually think that there is something more sinister going on here, that actually it's not just about, oh, you know, kind of flag-waving rights, that actually there is an element of kind of rather nasty child sexual abuse as an undercurrent of this?
I think there's both. I think there are definitely people who are really sinister, who are benefiting from this stupidity. I think there's a lot of people that think it's some sort of easy power grab. And so they can, the power at the moment seems to be progressive. And I use that word with both of us knowing I'm being sarcastic, I hope. Yeah. But power is now seen as saying things, not really doing much. I mean, in order to allow a child to transition legally, which personally, I don't think that should be something that any country does at all, ever. I don't think we should legally be able to change our sex. But allowing a child to do that doesn't take much, does it? You're not saving them from starvation. You're not educating them. You're not providing them with good housing. You can just say that you're a really lovely government because you're really focusing, caring about kids, introducing them to drag queens at 4 and 5 years old and all that great stuff. And you don't actually have to put your hands in your very deep pockets at all. No, absolutely not. And my take on it is that this affects potentially every single child and every single woman at the cost of just appeasing and making happy a fraction of a percentage of the Scottish population who would seek to benefit from this. It just doesn't make sense. Why are they willing to disregard what women think and, frankly, child safety in order to appease people who change their flag every 2 minutes? Well, I think they're incompetent as well as stupid, as well as maybe personally invested. I think some people can't really see beyond something that's supposed to make them look like a nice person. For example, the truth would be something that maybe they would want to align themselves with, but they're not particularly bothered. They all want to be re-elected. They've spent far too much time on social media and think this is a genuine issue that normal people care about. I don't know if they've noticed, but we're just about to go into a winter with a cost of living crisis. I think most people are a little bit more worried about that than anything else. But once you start telling the electorate, once you start telling normal people that actually what it means is when their elderly mother is in a care home, that she can't choose to be intimately cared for by a female, or when she goes into a hospital ward, she might have some bloke next to her who calls himself a woman who decides to have a great time all night. When you talk about those real life situations, there's no normal people that think that's remotely okay. Not at all. Do you think Nicola Sturgeon struggles with the definition of what a woman is? Do you think she knows? I have a lot of ideas about what Nicola Sturgeon may or may not think. Probably not fit for broadcast. But there's something going on. I wouldn't be surprised if there was some big hefty wad of cash, because how can you have such a powerful position? You can't be completely stupid. So there must be something else that you gain. I have no idea what it is, but it doesn't make me think about fluffy kittens at all. It makes me think about flipping tables. Yeah, I can believe that, Kelly. And
Where will this end, Kelly? Because I am absolutely terrified, and I hate to say this, I'm terrified of having a daughter, right? And this is like the opposite of what this stuff is supposed to do. Before, you know, maybe back in the day, blokes would have liked to have had a son so they can go, oh, you know, I want to take him to the football and this, that. No, I actually want to have a son so that I don't have to deal with the day-to-day rage of the idea that some bloke called Gary, who's dressed as a woman in Scotland for 3 months, might be able to go into a swimming bath, a female changing room at a swimming bath, and be in the same room as her, or that there's some teacher at school who's saying that this is all the right thing to do. I'm just terrified of it because I'm not sure I could live with the unrelenting anxiety of having a daughter in this day and age. And I hate to say that, but it's true.
Well, you mentioned Gary. Gary Glitter's just about to be released, isn't he? Wherever he is in the world, in prison for raping children. He can just call himself Janet and he can move to Scotland and he'll be fine. He can have unfettered access to women-only spaces, and maybe he could be a girl guide leader and go away on a little camp with some children. So these are the real-life consequences. I mean, you say about having a son, but we are bringing up a generation of children that cannot spot the truth, that will not be able to say a woman is an adult human female, that will not understand the fundamental foundation of truth that we happily have been raised upon. So I do worry about the overwhelming legacy of what that does to a population.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. Kelly, look, thank you very, very much. And can I just say, actually, quickly, before I let you get going, actually, you face a remarkable amount of backlash from this. Where does that tend to come from? Do you think it's from people who have drunk the woke Kool-Aid, or is it from people who are actually in that trans community? What is it?
Well, it's a little bit of both. It's basically people don't like women saying no, especially when they mean it. So that's where it comes from. It just comes from a nice dose of misogyny, which is a word that I hate to use, but it just feels so apt.
Well, if it exists, it exists, and that's a problem, isn't it? Kelly, thank you very, very much. Kellie-Jay Keen, just absolutely wonderful woman. An absolutely wonderful woman. All power to her, as far as I'm concerned.